I've got balls of steel.
Next up, we have Brutal John 2, a game that was released on July 22nd, 2025 and developed by Old School Lost team, and this is their first game that they made. I bought this game during Christmas and it was a blast, seeing that it was still on early access. However, fast forward to 2026, I've replayed this game, and considering that the main campaign was now finalized, it was a brutal experience, no pun intended. Today, we'll see if this game is good enough to be brutal as all hell. So, senores y señores, let's find out together. The year is 2090. The Earth is under attack by a group of alien lizards who are served by the Grand Leader known as Luzulian, whose evil plan is you guessed it, take over the world.
Of course!
But he's not going to take over the world by normal means. Oh hell no, he's gonna destroy the planet with crypto mining.
You what?
Yeah, remember when crypto mining was a thing? I sure as all hell remember that. GPU prices skyrocketed during that era. It was a rough, man. I'm sure that will never happen again, right? Right?
Honey, you've got a big storm coming.
So, who's going to stop these lizard bastards? None other than Brutal John and his dog friend. They are going to use their art of 4,000 years of FPS skills to dispatch the alien race and save the planet from crypto disaster. If you ever played any boomer shooter in your life, you probably know how this goes. But for those who are new to the channel, allow me to explain. In Brutal John 2, the gameplay is essentially pretty fast paced, with exotic weapons and a lot of enemies to brutally kill along the way, among crypto mining machines that can help you in this adventure, but I'll get to that when we get to that. Let's talk about the weapon roster. It actually does the job done. You have the quintessential weapons that you see in other games of the same caliber, like the pistol, shotgun, machine gun, rocket launchers, you name it. All of these weapons are pretty strong on their own merits, but you can buy alternative fire modes for some weapons if you visit the shopping computer. But it wouldn't be a Mr. John Reviews video without explaining how these weapons work, so let's get into it. The pistol is a decent weapon for low tier enemies, but you can actually wield two of them, which doubles the fire rate and damage, but increases the ammo consumption. The shotgun from Brutal John 2 is good, and it does decent damage. It also has an alternative fire mode, which shoots 2 bullets instead of 1, and it reloads once you shoot a certain amount of bullets, which might be a bad mechanic, but seeing that you move like a hedgehog and the enemies are stupid, this isn't necessarily a problem in of itself. But then you get a better version of said weapon that acts more like a super shotgun from Duke 2, but here you can fire 4 bullets instead of 2, dealing an absurd amount of damage, but at a cost of wasting a lot of shotgun ammo, so use it against bigger enemies. The machine gun is essentially the Ripper from Duke Nukem. It's great against hordes of enemies and can also shoot bouncing balls that deal more damage, but in my opinion, I found it kinda unreliable. But its counterpart, the assault rifle, is much stronger and it can zoom in enemies so that you can kill them precisely, though your movement is limited, so be aware. The chain gun acts like as you'd expect. It's a big ass gun that shoots ammo like no tomorrow. Totally outclasses the machine gun in some situations when there's hordes of lizards that are bulky as all hell. The rocket launcher does tons of damage and it can lock on enemies with its alternative firing mode. The plasma rifle design-wise looks like it came from Lame Duke. I mean, look at it. I find it funny that they took the design of a weapon that was discarded in the final version of said game and put it in their own game. You love to see it. Anyways, the rifle does great damage and it's super effective against robots and drones. Its alternative firing mode consists of shocking enemies, leaving them paralyzed. The sniper is a much better version of the assault rifle. Not only it deals major damage than the rifle, but its zoom in ability doesn't limit your movement and it's even useful for enemies that are very far away. The destroyer is a blend of the Devastator and the flamethrower from Duke 3D. It does the job done and its alternate firing mode stuns enemies when they are burning. Great against hordes of evil lizards that get turned into lizard Wellingtons that should taste better than what Gordon Ramsay makes. We also have the melee weapons, the blade and fists, and they work as they should. Though the blade is better at slashing hordes of enemies, the fists deal much more damage than the blade. Finally, we have the railgun. It's powerful, but it only appears in the late game. It does the job done similar to how other railguns function in different games, but here it also pierces through enemies, which is quite cool. Very cool weapon. Ultimately, the weapon roster, while powerful in its own right, seems a little bit uninspired. I wish that the game had some unique weapons, but at least the weapons function like they should, so it could be worse. For the enemy roster, it's kinda small. We have the small lizards, which are melee fodder, pickups that act similar to the ones from Duke Nukem, mutated rhino men that can punch you and deal heavy damage to John, humanoid lizard men that have different weapons based on their ranks, and they also have different health points depending on what rank they are. There are also robotic enemies that are resistant to bullets, but they are extremely weak to the rockets or the plasma rifle. And then we have the player clones, who are pretty bulky and are just as dangerous as you. Wait, clones you said? Well, you see, during the mid part of the game, there's this bastard named Brutal Slim who tries to use John's body and use it as a tool to clone him. Yeah, spoiler alert, he's in cahoots with Zillion. Yeah, you hate to see it. Speaking of which, there are bosses in Brutal John 2, and in all honesty, they are pretty easy to deal with. Though some bosses like Slim were pretty tough, seeing that bastard wielded 2 pistols to toast you, but it was still manageable. As for the final boss, it was challenging, but in his final phase, it was kind of a joke. Hell, at some point you confront a chef, who, guess what, he's associated with Luzillian, and he was a massive pushover. Let me tell you buddy, that chef is no Gordon Ramsay. Enough said. Gunplay and movement wise, Brutal John 2 does these two components justice. Like I said, the weapons, while uninspired, they pack a lot of punch, as you can see from the sounds they make and the feedback that they gave to the player. And as for the movement, it's very Quake-ish, given that you can be faster by bunny jumping all around, amazing to keep your enemy on your toes. When talking about the level design, it's really superb. It really emulates the essence of a lot of old school FPS games, more specifically Duke Nukem 3D, which is pretty surprising as seeing that its unfortunate sequel, Forever, and another ill-fated game, Phantom Fury, really failed in trying to capture the magic from Duke 3D. But Brutal John 2 managed to do that pretty well. It really feels like what Forever could have been if it didn't have these development issues. Interactivity with the environment? Check. Spicy environments? Check. Interacting to strippers? Check. Secrets are tough as nails to find? You bet. And you can play as a dog? Check. Wait, dog? Yeah, at some points in the game, you play as the dog, which, spoilers, it got mutated into a humanoid dog during a flashback story. Stats-wise, both John and the dog play the same, which I was kinda disappointed as I would expect the dog being faster or slower than John. But oh well, you can't always win, right? The levels in Brutal John 2 have tons of interactivity. Like I mentioned before, you can tip strippers, break bottles, windows, and cars. You can also play arcade games that unlock secrets, and these games are easy to play and they are short, so they don't overstay their welcome. Hell, you can find some characters or people that you may recognize from YouTube. Talking of which, there's tons of Easter eggs, like references for older FPS styles, YouTubers making cameos, which is delightful, you love to see it, but also somehow the Cockroach Mid-King somehow makes an appearance. Ooh.
Brother, what's that? What's that, brother?
Also, he's overrated as all hell, by the way.
I don't hate sewer levels and Capstone?
Hey, he would never say that. That guy is an imposter. I'll bet Capstone themselves made this doll just to troll us. Oh, did I forget that there's also a Hollywood Holocaust reference in the entrance of the casino level? Which was cool, but I still wish we would play the entire level as a bonus. In addition, you don't just go run and gun enemies, but you also ride a bike in a desert level, which is short but fun. Roll killing these reptile filhos de puta never gets old. Fuck these lizard bastards. Oh, and also forget about the currency system. There's a good reason why you should destroy these crypto miners. They give you money, which allows you to buy grenades, pizzas which can heal you. Wait, pizzas? Come on guys, you're not fucking Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, cut that shit out. And energy drinks that make you go faster than a blue hedgehog. But did you know that you can also buy alternative firing modes for some weapons? Yep, if you get enough cash, you can expand your arsenal. So keep searching high and low for secrets. As for the difficulty, for me, the difficulty is many things. but Brutal is not one of them. Even on hard, the game was still a breeze. Yes, I died a few times, but that was my fault for being overzealous during fights, but for the most part, the game was too easy. Probably either because of the enemy roster consisting of pushovers, or maybe, just maybe, I'm too good at this game due to my experience of 4,000 years of FPS skills. Mostly the latter. Brutal John 2's graphics look very chunky and pixelated. It feels like a combination of PS1 graphics and Quake and Duke 3D aesthetics, which I feel like is more inspired by Duke 3D than Quake, but seeing that Duke 3D used sprites instead of 3D models, this feels like Duke Forever when it was first revealed in 1997, but the difference here is that the game's graphical purpose was fulfilled, and Forever didn't, until it had numerous game engine changes until 2011 and it looked like ass. And this phenomenon shows even further with the aesthetics, shadows, lighting, environment. I really love the design of Slim's casino, the Luzilian spaceship, and the desert sections of the game. With all said and done, they look amazing. The game runs under the Unity engine, which powered many excellent games like Old School Rally, Dusk, and Cuphead, and it brings me joy to my heart that the engine is no longer used on asset flip slop like it was back in 2016. Remember that shit? But what about performance? It actually runs pretty decent on my Linux rig. I mean, with the game that looks like this, it shouldn't have any performance issues whatsoever. And if you want the game to look more Quake-ish, you can actually turn on texture filtering, which looks like shit, I'm sorry. But when I play old games, I often don't turn texture filtering on. I don't know, I just prefer sharp and crispy visuals, unless if a game was designed for it. When talking about sound design, the game's soundtrack was composed by Mr. Soundshark671 and Vakaslav aka VM Sound, who is a professional composer who composed music for casino games that nobody knows and cares, like Lucky Turn, Mystery of Gods, and Fair Wind. The soundtrack of this game is pretty upbeat, packing adrenaline, electric, and rock to the core, especially when you slaughter dozens of these lizard buffoons. It really hits hard if you ask me. Sound effects wise, they are good. The weapon sounds are pretty brutal and they pack a brutal punch that is brutally rewarding. And for the most part, it uses sound effects from old FPS games like Duke 3D. Also, the voice acting in this game is good, for the most part. John's voice is pretty cool to hear, it's hilarious as all hell. It emulates the humor you saw in other build engine games like Duke Nukem, Blood, and Shadow Warrior, and it executes it pretty well. These characters in the game were voiced by Alexei Stode, Vitaly Bondarenko, Ekaterina Dimitrova, Jimmy Slim, and Vlad Tashkin. Not to mention that Gianni Matagrano is involved in this. I mean, it's not the first time that he ever did this, he was also involved in Slayer's X. I just wish the dog could emote more. He sounded like Duke, except he was too stoic and less expressive. But that's my opinion, who am I to judge about it, huh? Ultimately, Brutal John 2 is one hell of a game that pays homage to one of the greatest games of all time. That being said, just because you have a game that pays homage to other older games of the same genre doesn't necessarily make it good. But Brutal John 2 is a good game, but it's essentially a spiritual successor of Duke Nukem 3D. Its gameplay is good enough to be satisfying, though the enemy and weapon roster could have been more original, but nevertheless, it's still a solid roster, being powerful enough to dispatch the evil lizards in the game, and I think the two characters should have different stats because they play exactly the same. Also, I wish there could have had some levels that let you play as a female friend, which I was kinda disappointed. The level design is outstanding in its own right, the graphics and soundtrack are amazing for what it's trying to aiming to be Duke Nukem Forever, if Duke Nukem Forever was actually good. You might be asking yourselves, how much does it cost? Well, it only costs 15 euros, which for a game like Brutal John 2, it hits the right spot. So if you're a huge fan of Duke Nukem, get this game. You won't be disappointed. At the end of the day, Brutal John 2 is a solid game in its own right, and I can't wait to see more of both John and his fellow dog friend in the near future.